What's going on, everybody? Doug here, one of the hosts of the Genre of Your Life podcast, here with a review roundup episode for you all this week. There will be no full episode of the Genre of Your Life podcast this week, unfortunately. I got an event going on, but have no fear. Nick and myself, and hopefully the rest of the gang will be back next week with a full episode of the podcast for you all. Next week is the start of June summer movie preview. We got Bad Boys for Life. Bad Boys Ride or Dies coming out next week. Me and Nick should be going to a screening of that, I believe, on Wednesday, if not Tuesday. So look out for our full review of that, our reaction. And again, guys, we have a full stacked summer, July, June, everything, August. We have a full-on reviews, reactions, everything for you all, commentary, news updates. We are just getting started. Summer is finally heating up, and we are so stoked to catch up on all things movies, TV, streaming, all that. The Bears coming out next month. Bears season 3, one of my favorite shows. Oh man, we have a great June in store for you all. But as always, guys, you can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, actually. Now Google Podcasts now officially have been closed, so it'll be now YouTube Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music. We also have Amazon Music. We also have a full audio show on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Midway Avenue Productions. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, Amazon or YouTube Music, please subscribe, rate the show. Please, for our Apple Podcast listeners, we still have our goal of getting to 200 ratings hopefully soon. The more rings we have on our Apple Podcast, the more opportunities we have for screenings and more coverage and events and, interviews, whatever. So please, for Apple Podcast listeners, please help us get to 200 ratings on Apple Podcasts. We need your help. But again, for our Spotify listeners, Amazon Music listeners, YouTube, rate, subscribe, comment, both good or bad. We want to hear from you all. All good press is good press. So please leave us your reviews, your comments, concerns, questions. What are you watching? What are you looking forward to this summer? We want to hear from you guys. So please review, rate, share us with your friends, your family, your movie friends, movie fans everywhere. And as always, guys, thank you so much for the ongoing support. It truly means the world to all of us here at the show. Like I said, guys, this is a review roundup episode, but on this week's special review roundup episode for you all, I have my review of Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, as well as Netflix's new Richard Linklater film, Hitman. Both I am super eager to review for you all on the podcast, but you probably see my athlete reaction. You already know I am over the moon, just in love with this movie, Hitman, by the great Richard Linklater, my favorite filmmaker of all time, starring Glenn Powell and many others. And I heard last week's show, I did like Mad Max a lot when it came out about 10 years ago when I was in high school, so I was very eager to see Furiosa. I got some thoughts. I'm definitely positive for sure. A little spoiler alert, but I am so stoked to review both these movies for you all on this episode. So let's get in, shall we? So I'll start with Hitman actually first. I'm a little biased, like I said. Richard Linklater, Dazed and Confused, Everybody Wants Him, Slacker, School of Rock. I mean, list goes on and on. The Before Sunrise, Sunset, and Midnight trilogy. The dude is just a really definition of pure American independent filmmaker who's gotten notoriety from movies like Dazed and Confused, School of Rock, the Before trilogy. I mean, again, Scanner Darkly. This guy just has a resume like no others. And I'll tell you what, I think my first movie that I saw of his was School of Rock. I grew up watching School of Rock. Jack Black's one of my heroes as a kid. And he's still one of my heroes to this day. But, I knew who he was because of School of Rock, but it wasn't until I got older, I'm like, oh, wait, this guy did this movie. This guy did this movie. And I remember watching Dazed when I was in high school, and it was the perfect time to watch it, obviously, because it was about high school and last day of school, whatever. People going, middle school is going to high school people moving on or graduating or staying in high school, whatever. And it just hit me at the right time where it was just like, wow, this movie is just it's perfect. It's perfect. It's a great soundtrack. I'm not a kid of the 70s, obviously. I'm a kid of the 90s. But for some reason, just it hit me at the right time. I'm like, oh, I'm in high school, so I can relate to this. And yes, things are kind of different how they were in the 70s than they were when I was going in high school in 2010s. But still, I can still relate to it a way of just the way it was a really cool hangout film. There were so many different characters. The way that Linklater kind of just carries himself as a filmmaker, but the way he writes different characters, the way he has huge ensemble pieces is very inspirational to me of why I want to make movies one day, why I love to write films and write shows, whatever, because you can relate to these characters in so many different ways. There's the cool guys, there's the stoners, there's the jocks, there's the cool girls, there's the ones that kind of the higher senior girls, whatever. But it's just there's in that movie, everyone can find their character. Or the weirdos like McConaughey, which again his first big movie. All right, all right, all right. You know, kind of the old creep hanging out with high schoolers still. So it's a movie for everyone. But I remember seeing it, I was like, this guy did School of Rock? No way. I just went through all his catalog. This is like, I want to say 2014, 2015. When I saw it, I went through all like his catalog, went through everything like Scanner Darkly, the before trilogy, which I just fell in love with after seeing the first one. I just went through all his filmography, all these movies, Slacker, stuff like that. The one I have not seen is Suburbia, which I think it's on Tubi or Pluto TV, so I gotta look for that. But I've seen most of his work. So I'm like, wow, this guy did so many movies that I love. And you know what? Controversial opinion, I really do enjoy his Bad News Bears remake. I know, it's not as good as the original. I know. But for a remake, I think it's really funny. I think I saw it as a kid actually with my cousins, whatever, and I was like, this movie's hilarious. I mean, for me, I was like 8 or 9. It was like a little, no, not even that, but no, probably like 8 or 9, or even less than that. I mean, I was 8. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was 8, and it was kind of like all the swear words. I was like, "What movie is this? Is great! Like, people are swearing, people are getting beat up. Like, what is this?" I opened my childish mind. I'm just like, "Wow, like this is so cool." I have a special place in my heart because I saw it at the time. I'm like, "Oh, this guy did School of Rock." I'm like, "Oh, no way!" So I do really like his Bad News Bears remake. I know the original is the classic. I get it, but for a remake, I really thought that he did a good job with it. It's a really fun movie to watch. Has a lot of good memories, a lot of nostalgia around that movie. But all the movies, whatever. So again, I knew he was one of my favorite filmmakers when I was growing up, stuff like that. But he wasn't my favorite filmmaker at the time, and it wasn't until a movie called Everybody Wants Some came out, and I was a senior in high school. My good friend Sebastian, love the guy, Sebastian, who's a movie guy like myself, saw this movie with his friend in LA at the time. And he goes, Doug, you have to see this movie. I know you love Dazed and Confused a lot. You got to see this movie. And I was like, okay, for sure, I'll see it. But unfortunately, the movie did not do well at all. And it got pulled pretty quickly. And living in Chicago at the time, we get the indie kind of like small release movies first. I know the movie's a Paramount release, but it was kind of like a slow, it wasn't a wide release as some other movies are. So I remember it came out. I was a senior in high school. I was playing baseball. So like, it kind of came and went, unfortunately. But I was hearing great things about it. If you love Dazed and Confused, you're going to love this movie. Like, oh, crap, I love Dazed and Confused. That's awesome. So I get to see it. It went away really quickly, unfortunately. And I think I went to a screening of it with the cast and crew. They were in town. But again, I had like a baseball game. I was in high school. So I was like, whatever. I missed out on it. And then, but I remember Sebastian, my friend Sebastian was like, do you guys see this movie, man? You're going to love this movie. I was like, all right, for sure. And so I'm moving out of Chicago. I'm moving to Arizona with my family. We're about to start college. I graduated from high school. I'm about to start college in a few months at the time. I was like, all right, I'm going to watch this movie. So I remember legit watching it. I want to say the night before I moved to Arizona to start college, or like on the plane. I think it was the night before. I just fucking love this movie. I was like, the same feeling I had with Dazed, I had it even more with Everybody Wants Some, because I was like, this movie's perfect. This movie is truly perfect. And when you see a movie that you see it at the right time, it just changes the way you see movies, you see life. It just hits you at the right time. And Everybody Wants Some, which is, again, it's quoted as the spiritual sequel, Dazed and Confused. You can totally see that. And, I think Dazed definitely the better movie. However, I think my favorite is Everybody Wants Some, because the movie takes, again, set in the 80s. It's about a freshman in high school who plays baseball. I was about to be a freshman in college. Again, Everybody Wants Some is about a guy. He's a freshman in college. His first weekend at college. He's a baseball player. I'm about to be a freshman in college. I played baseball. I was going to play baseball in college, but just like I was still a baseball player. And it was at the right time just where it hit me. And I said, this movie is just fucking perfect. It's funny. It's a great ensemble piece, just like Days. The great soundtrack. Again, I'm not a kid of the 80s, but just like the music, the vibe, just like the character development, and just like the ensemble piece of it all. Like, everyone can find their person or themselves in these characters, because there's a huge ensemble piece. And I said, damn it, dude, this Linklater guy knows how to make a good fucking movie. Excuse my language, but I'm just like, man, this guy can really make really good movies that you can relate to. And I just love this movie. I remember, like, I think I rented it or I watched it like on somewhat whatever, and I bought it immediately. I was like, no, I'm buying this movie right now on iTunes. Bought it on my iPad. I was like, I'm buying this movie. I'm buying this movie right now. I love this movie so much. I think I watched it like 8 different times during during that summer before I started college. Cause I'm like, I just love this movie so much. So right then I was like, okay, you know what, dude? This guy's my favorite filmmaker. With Dazed, everybody wants some School of Rock, the Ford trilogy. I'm like, nah, this guy's my favorite filmmaker of all time. And just the way that his movies have, talked to me, they've like made a big part of my life. Like when I was in college, film school, or me and Nick Moses were in the same film school at ASU. A lot of my papers and thesis were about Linklater and his filmography and his rise from independent cinema to like the guy who's now really like Austin Artur, as they call him. Like he really put Austin on the map, like Robert Rodriguez, the same way of like they really put Austin on the map in terms of filmmaking and movies being told and storytelling. Where it's a point I was like, wow, this guy really has an impact on where he came from and also American cinema, especially from independent cinema. And there's a great book that I got a few years ago as a gift. And I'm still reading it right now, but it's called All Right, All Right, All Right: The Oral History of Dazed and Confused. And if you're a fan of filmmaking, you're a fan of just like that movie in general, or him, I think Linklater is a fan of Linklater as a filmmaker in his movies, you gotta read this book. It is awesome. Again, one of my professors actually is in the book too, because I think he was a unit production manager or publicist on the film. But all these kind of testimonials from like people on the crew and the cast, whatever, Linklater himself, it was written by someone that was not part of the film, but just like someone who loved the film and loves Linklater. You gotta read this book. I gotta finish it this summer because like I was so hooked. I was like, this is great because I love this movie so much. I love his work. This is amazing. But again, in college too, all my papers, my thesis, and my projects were a lot about his work. So I'm like, this dude has just talked to me as a movie fan, as someone who just loves cinema, wants to make movies, wants to write films, and this guy has just really just kind of spoke to me in all his films, whether it's School of Rock, whether it's Dazed, whether it's the Ford trilogy, and Everybody Wants Some. I have truly loved all his work, minus Where'd You Go, Bernadette. I will say, listen, love film. I love Kate Blanchett, and I love Linklater. That movie to me was kind of a snooze fest. I remember seeing it in college. I was like, oh no, bro, this ain't it, Chief. And I was like, dude, like it didn't feel like his movie. It felt very kind of just like a throwaway film. And I was like, what really was this? It kind of really wasted talents of like everyone involved, including Linklater, including Kate Blanchett. But for the most part, this guy really has had a huge influence on me, and his films had a huge influence on me of why I wanted to go to film school, why I studied his films in college, why I wrote about his paper, about his movies and stuff, and my papers and projects and theses, all that kind of stuff. So he's my favorite filmmaker of all time. And so when I heard he's making a movie with Glenn Powell, who we did Everybody Wants Him with, I'm like, cool, sign me up for sure. But I was really bummed to hear it was a Netflix film. Again, no offense to Netflix or whatever, but like I really do enjoy seeing films. As you know, the show, all of us here on the podcast, myself, Nick, Joel, and Moses, we're very big on pro theatrical because it is the true way to see a movie on the big screen. So I remember they premiered at Venice or the Cannes Film Festival last year, or was it Venice? One of the film fest, and then was at TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival last year as well, because it was during all the writer strikes and the actor strikes. So it was just Linklater kind of there front and present promoting this movie because no one else could. And I was hearing like, oh my God, what is he's done it again. This movie is probably his best work. And I was like, yo, I have to see this movie now. I gotta see this movie now. And this was a year ago, and it was just like they made on spec, so there was no distribution, there was no buyer. They're looking for a buyer off the movie, and I was like, oh man. And I think I almost covered it, or I didn't cover it on the show, but like it was announced that Netflix has bought Hitman by Linklater. I was like, no, because I feel like Netflix obviously has their market, they have their brand, they are established people, and I like a lot of stuff like Netflix, whether it was The Killer, Stranger Things, obviously, like they have a great platform. Don't get me wrong, Hustle, I loved, but I was like, oh man, I feel like this movie deserves to be a theatrical release because I feel like Linklater makes movies for the big screen, what he does. But I don't think the last movie, Apollo 10.5, was a Netflix movie, but very good movie, but it was like the film that I want to see in theaters, but I still would have seen it in theaters if given the chance. But when I heard that Hitman was going to Netflix, I was like, shit. So I'm like, man, I would kill to see this on the big screen. And like most of their movies, like to give credit what credit is due, like most of their films, they are given a week release in theaters, in select theaters. But unfortunately out here in the Phoenix area, Netflix films only go to one theater in Scottsdale Quarter. Beautiful theater. It's very nice, don't get me wrong, but it's not really a wider release. So if you want to see this movie, you got to go to this one theater. And that's cool, but it's just like they didn't really give it the Knives Out treatment of like a much wider release, or like Glass Onion, Knives Out 2, whatever. was given a wider release in like AMC's or whatever, but out here, where I live in the Phoenix area, where me and Nick are in the Phoenix area, it's only given one theater. So it was like, guys see this theater and a week and it goes away. It'll be on Netflix June 7th for sure. About when I heard it was coming to theaters, I'm like, I have to see this movie. I cannot miss it. I got to see it on the big screen. And boy, oh boy, I am glad I did, because I truly love this movie so much. Again, like I said, I am biased because Linklater is my favorite filmmaker of all time. Like I said, both Everybody Wants Some, Days Confused are both 10 out of 10. If you ask me, they're both in my top 10 of all time, personally. That will never change. I guarantee that. So I was hearing great things about it. Glenn Powell's in this. He wrote it with Linklater. They have great chemistry from Everybody Wants Some and stuff like that. I was like, okay, cool. Like, let's go. And I was hearing amazing things about it from the festivals. Hitman is about a professor moonlighting as a hitman of sorts for his city police department, descends into dangerous, dubious territory when he finds himself attracted to a woman who enlists his services. And this is based on a true story, actually. A guy named Gary Johnson. I think it was in the Texas area. The movie takes place in New Orleans. I thought he was in Austin or around Texas, but in the movie, it's in New Orleans. And I love this movie so much. Oh my gosh. Linklater has done it again. I think this is his best movie since Everybody Wants Some in 2016. Listen, he came out with Last Flag Flying, which I did see in theaters, actually, at a screening, actually, back in college. Because I was like, cool, my favorite movie has a screening. I'm going to the movie. I'm going to see this movie with some friends or whatever. And Last Flag Flying is for sure a very mature film. It's very, very dark, a lot of serious themes, a great cast. Lawrence Fishburne, Bryan Cranston, Steve Carell. All three have fantastic chemistry. But it was coming off a time of I was loving his kind of goofball and screwball comedies, like Everybody Wants Some and Days Confused and Slacker, stuff like that. I'm like, ooh, cool, I want to see that. And I think Last Flag Flying is a very dense film for sure. Still liked it a lot, but I wouldn't say top 5 of his films, if you ask me. Still a very well made movie, very sad, very dark, very humorous at times for sure. But I think my sophomore year college brain was like, oh man, it's not Everybody Wants Some. It's very unfair to compare those two movies. They're so radically different, but it didn't hit me the same way like Everybody Wants Some, or Days Confused did, or Before Trilogy, or School of Rock, whatever. But still a very well made movie. I haven't seen it since. I probably will watch it after watching Hitman. Kind of go back and watch all his movies again, because I love his filmography. He's my favorite filmmaker of all time. And then he did Where'd You Go, Bernadette, like I said, and I was so hyped. I'm like, oh my god, Cate Blanchett, one of my favorite actresses. Linklater's in this. Oh, they're doing this. Let's go. And people love the book, whatever. And the trailer kind of intrigued me. I'm like, let's go. I remember seeing it at a matinee or something. I think opening week at the theater by ASU, the AMC and Centerpoint. Shout out to AMC Centerpoint on Mill. I walked in. I was like, there's no one here but me. Given that was a midday, early afternoon. I was like, nah, all right, whatever. And I watched it. I was like, it's just not hidden. It's just not hidden the way his other films do. And I was like, all right, maybe it'll get better. It didn't. And when it ended, I was like, oof. And I was like, man, Linklater, you've never let me down until now. And I was just like, you know what? He went for something. He was trying something different. And I think Cate Blanchett, who I don't think it was her best role. I don't think it's definitely not his best movie as a filmmaker, as a director, as a writer. But I was like, oh man, what went wrong? And again, that movie kind of came and went, unfortunately. So, think about his movies too. They don't have the biggest box office pull. So if you want to see his movie, you got to see it before it goes. Like Everybody Wants Some, or Hitman, or Where'd You Go, Bernadette? Because he's not making them for the box office. He's making it for cinema and being just a really great filmmaker. But it kind of comes to a point where you want to see his movie, you better go see it before it gets pulled. And I was just very disappointed with Where'd You Go, Bernadette? Because I was just like, oh man, I had really high hopes. Oh, sorry, Boyhood. Boyhood's a phenomenal film. Sorry, Boyhood is just how he pulled that off in 12 years is remarkable. It gets very long, but they also hit me at the same time. I remember it came out when I was a sophomore or junior in college, and I was in high school, and I was like, whoa, what is this? And just the way he filmed that over 12 years, Patricia Arquette, who's just phenomenal, everything she's in, just that movie also just was just so definition of just wow, how he pulled that off. And again, definition of American cinema. I remember when it came out, I was like, oh, okay, whatever, for sure. I was like, okay, but I remember watching it at home, and I was like, damn, I should have seen this in the theaters, despite it being 3 hours. But it was still wow, everyone was talking about this movie, holy crap, what is this? So with Would You Go Burnett, I was like, cool. And just for some reason, it did not just hit me the way the other films do. And I was like, oh man. And then COVID hit, obviously, and then he did Apollo 10 and a half, which you might know. It's kind of like he does this kind of thing where it's like it's live action, but like he animates everybody. So like they shoot it on live action and then they animate it in post, and then it was Scanner Darkly and what's the other film? I'm gonna pull up right now. Scanner Darkly and it's called Waking Life. It's very kind of this like very interesting hybrid animation live action kind of thing. It's very interesting. I'll tell you that. I watched those movies. I watched Scanner Darkly in that like in college, and I was like, whoa, this is like really interesting. A great cast too. Films like Bernie. Bernie's a good movie as well. Very underrated. So most of his films are definitely underrated, and again, they're not box office pulls, but he makes these personal and really character-driven movies, which I love, because again, you can say every once in Days Confused don't have plots, which you're not wrong, but like you're watching it to like just the feel and the vibes, and just like watching these characters kind of just like during the situation, or again, last day of school and Days Confused, everybody wants them. It's the first week of college, it's the first weekend of college, whatever. Oh, sorry, first weekend before college and the first day of classes, whatever. Finding your friends, meeting your new people, meeting your teammates and friends, whatever. So like his movies are character driven with all the stories based on character, which I really admire about that guy. That's why I think these movies kind of speak to me a lot more than other films. So with Hitman, like I said, going into this, hearing great things about it, love this movie. This is easily Glenn Powell's best performance as an actor, no doubt about it. Listen, when I saw him, everybody wants him. I'm like, yo, who is this guy? He got the it, man. He's the it factor. Like he's got the stuff, you know. He's got the acting stuff, you know. And I was like, he's so charming. He had all this charisma. He was cool. He was funny. And I was like, who is this guy? I didn't really know who he was, other than remember being in a cameo in Dark Knight Rises when Bane just knocks him out at the scene at the stock exchange, whatever. I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. Oh, yeah, that's right. He was right along, too, at the beginning of the really random cameo. I was like, what the hell is this? But I remember seeing Glenn Powell and Everybody Wants him. I'm like, dude, who is this guy, man? This guy can act. Like, he's really funny, really charming. And then you see him stuff like kind of like rom-coms, like Set It Up, which I wasn't really a big fan of, but I like him and Zoe Deutsch a lot. And I was like, this guy's pretty cool. I like him. And then I really think again, I didn't see Hidden Figures, but I heard it was really good in Hidden Figures. Something was really good too. So I've not seen that. It's on my list. It's been on my list for a long time. But I was like, yo, who is this guy, man? Like, he's really cool, really suave about everything. And obviously, when Top Gun Maverick came out, it was like, yo, who's this Glenn Powell guy? Like, we didn't, again, no offense to Miles Teller. We didn't know who Miles Teller is, obviously, because. So it's just like, what's going on here? And obviously I know he auditioned for Miles Teller as Rooster, but he got Hangman. But again, I think the story goes that Tom Cruise like convinced him to be on Top Gun, because I think after he got denied of Rooster, he's like, I'm not doing this movie, like fuck this. I'm kind of like, I'll go a separate way. But with Tom Cruise said, hey, Tom Cruise said, hey man, this role is still yours, man. Just do it. And I think he kind of convinced him, and I'm glad he did. I think Glenn Powell put a really good snarky kind of just like kind of the douche, kind of Val Kilmer in a way of the original Top Gun. He's playing this in Top Gun Maverick, and it works, man. I thought he was great as Hangman, very cocky, very arrogant, pushed the buttons, and it just worked. And obviously he kind of blew up off of that. And then obviously Anyone But You, which I loved last year. It was so much fun, so funny, so charming. It was fun to see a rom-com like that on the big screen with an audience laughing like that. And also that movie did really, really, really well box office wise. So props to him. So again, I was a fan of this guy from Everybody Wants Some, and I was like, cool, man. I'm glad to see these guys kind of success and kind of him seeing, just like kind of getting these roles. He deserves it. But like I said, with Apollo 10 and a half, Where'd You Go Bernadette, Last Flag Flying, this is definitely Linklater's best film since Everybody Wants Him. Again, this is also Glenn Powell's best performance as leading man. This is the one that will get him the next job. This one will for sure put him on the map. And I respect that he wrote this with Richard Linklater too. Like, apparently the story goes like Glenn Powell wrote this article and asked Linklater about it, and Richard Linklater was like, I knew about that years ago, but there's a movie here. So obviously they wrote it together. They made it on spec. There was really no distribution or buyer at the time, or a studio behind, or a streamer behind. But like, they believe in this movie, and they're writing in this. The writing in this is so witty. It's so sharp. It's very clever, and I've always praised Linklater for his writing and his his dialogue, stuff like that. But with this, the both of them work so well with each other as an actor-director duo, but as co-writers, the script is just so charming. It just really is. Like the dialogue between everyone, dialogue between from Gary and Madison, played by, and I'm butchering her name all the time, Adria Arona. I'm probably butchering her name, but from her, between the chemistry between her, like chemistry between Adria Arona and Glenn Powell is electric. It's sexy, it's electric, it's really charming to watch. They play off each other very well. It's funny at times, and when you know you have good chemistry, it just works. It makes the movie just feel just like more relatable, make it more like believable. The whole time, these between the characters of Gary Johnson and Madison, played by again Glenn Powell and Adria Arona, is just so damn charming. It's so damn charming, and it's just so much fun to watch. And supporting cast in this from Retta, Austin Amelio, who Austin Amelio was also in Everybody Wants Some as a Nesbitt, who plays kind of snarky, kind of just like smart ass know it all, and like most of the guys in that movie. But like they had great chemistry, and Everybody Wants Some. So I was so glad that Linklater kind of brought him back for this one too. Plays this really kind of like scummy cop of the New Orleans Police Department. But again, Retta, who's I just loved her in Parks and Recreation, who's really funny in everything she's in. She's great in this. She shines in this. When she's there, she pops. She really pops. Austin Amelio, like I said, did a really good job. And I want to shout out this guy too. I'm not familiar with his work. Sanjay Rao, who was really good in this too. He's really funny in this. He has great chemistry between Glenn Powell and Retta as a team. They all work for the New Orleans Police Department, and they work as a team so damn well, where it's funny, they're serious at times, a lot of anxious, a lot of kind of like nervousness is kind of built during kind of certain things. And the movie itself is just like, what? Like this guy, it's like this guy that this guy that Glenn Powell is playing is like, whoa, like whoa, like there's no way this is real. And the guy was legit. He was like a really dweebish, nerdy college professor who was, wearing like really long jean shorts. He was wearing really long kind of stuff. You're like, yo, what is this? Like, what is this guy? Like, what the heck? Like, he's one of these kind of really bad comb over. He had really kind of dorkish glasses. And he was kind of more like an analyst, kind of working behind the scenes, kind of hearing things. And then when they put him in the field to play this hitman, so the New Orleans Police Department was really, again, I think in the movie, that is, the police department kind of make this like fake myth about this hitman around town. Like, you want to hit, this is your guy, whatever. And Glenn Powell gets thrown into this, and his first day of doing it, he's kind of playing himself. He kind of like, what do I do? He's himself. He's wearing these kind of like jean shorts, whatever, and these glasses and all this stuff. But he just sells it. He's like, yo, you looking for, yeah, I'm your hitman, this, whatever. And it's a whole sting operation, because as soon as these people give him the money, boop, 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 the police are right there and they bust their ass. And it's like, what the heck was that? Like, what the hell? And it's crazy that this was a true story. Again, I know a lot of emphasis for sure, 'cause it's a Hollywood movie, but like, you see, cause he was a natural at it. In the Retta and everyone on the team was like, dude, you were so good at that. Like, where'd that come from? He goes, I don't know. It just kind of came to me. And he was the guy now for New Orleans Police Department. Like, hey man, you're gonna be our hitman to kind of bring everyone in and get them and capture them. He's like, all right, for sure. And then with each hitman, he had a new disguise, he had a new look, he had a new accent, whatever. You're just like, this is crazy. And he was great. You getting some really awful people that really wanted to hurt people, like who were hiring these hits on these people that they used to love, or people in their life. And you're just like, this is insane. But definitely like there's both Linklater and Powell are calling it kind of like a screwball comedy mixed with like a film noir. And you can totally see it for sure, no doubt about it. But it just, the blend of comedy and dark comedy and thriller at times really works. It just, I love when films can really embrace the weirdness of it all too, but also kind of really balance the two genres really well. And I do think with this, the comedy and the thriller and the screwball and the film noir all work together, which I give a lot of props to Linklater. I think this is one of his most different movies in terms of just like, not a hitman or assassin, but like, it's not like, like a John Wick or like The Killer or David Fincher kind of thing, but this is more kind of just like a goofier version of that, but with very serious notes at times. And there was times where I was just like getting anxious. I was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, no. And when he gets involved with Adria Arona's character, Madison, it's just like, like, dude, you can't get involved with her. Like, this is against the rules. Like, she tried hiring you to kill someone. Like, what's going on here? And the way he gets involved with her, it's just like, dude, what are you doing, bro? And like, as the deeper he gets, the more he gets to these characters, just like, oh my gosh. That was the times I was just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I was like really leaned over in my chair at the theater. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is crazy. But I had I smile ear to ear because I'm just like, this is why I go to the movie. This is why Linklater is my favorite filmmaker of all time. This is why his movies just kind of work with me because they always get me like, minus Where'd You Go, Bernadette, but like this is why like I love his style of filmmaking. You know, speaking of theater too, you know, again, this is only a 1 week release from Netflix, so I think it's already gone this week. I don't know if it got extended. If it did, I would definitely say if you can see it in theaters, well worth seeing in theaters. No, even if you only buy Netflix, if you're already a Netflix subscriber or you already buy Netflix, I get it. But if you can, it is a great time at the movies in the theaters. You know, I walked in, I was like, I bought my ticket, I was like, it's pretty packed. And I walked in, I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And it was pretty packed for a Netflix. I saw it on Memorial Day too, so also the holiday. But like, I was surprised to see how packed it was. I was like, yo, like, this is pretty crazy seeing how packed it was and seeing like seeing how like the turnout for it was. And I was like, this is awesome for a Netflix movie. The turnout of this would have been great. And it just makes me sad. I'm like, if this was given a really full like theatrical release, like a wider release from Netflix, or was bought by a studio, and what I've heard, it would have been probably a bigger hit, obviously in terms of theatrical. But unfortunately, it's going Netflix. And what surprises me, I heard an interview with Glenn Powell, was that no one wanted this movie. Like, no studio wanted this movie, no distribution wanted this movie, and I'm just like, what were you guys thinking? Like, what the hell is wrong? These movies are great, and they're saying it was too weird for them. I'm like, oh, come on. And we see everything. Me and Nick see everything. I see everything in theaters no matter what. If I can, I watch everything on home too. But I've seen some weirder movies come out from different exhibitors and distribution and studios where I'm like, come on, guys. Like, this was weird for you guys. This was weird for you. And after it premiered at these festivals, it came all this critical and audience praise that, like, this was too weird for you guys. Like, let's be real here. So it really kind of, like, threw me through the loop and kind of made me scratch my head. I'm like, you're telling me no one wanted this movie? So I can't be mad at Netflix for not giving this a full theatrical release, but at least they bought it. At least they're giving it a somewhat release, even though it's very, 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 very slim. So I'll give them that, but it definitely kind of just made me confused. It made me upset. I'm like, dude, no one wanted this movie. What is wrong with you guys? So I don't know. If you can see in theaters, though, go see in theaters. Definitely worth the price of admission before it comes to Netflix next Friday, which is the 7th of June. It was just fun. The people, my crowd was laughing, they were cheering, they were clapping, they were so into it. And I'm like, this is why we go to the movies. So I'm really glad that I saw it with the crowd I was in, and they were so into it, because I just love this movie so much. It's so much charming. It's cool. It's suave. It's sexy. It's fun. It's really funny. And to me, I'm just like, this is why I love Linklater and his films. This is why I love movies. This is why I love filmmaking. This is why, like, he's my favorite filmmaker of all time. Movies like this. And so, like, I get the same vibe as I did with, you know, like Everybody Wants Some or Days Confused, but I'm just like, but this is the movie that I like seeing from him. Like, this is why his movies have a huge impact on me. Why I love film, very inspirational. Why I want to make movies and write movies one day, stuff like that. Write shows one day. So I love this movie. You definitely worth seeing this in theaters. It's everyone on board in this. It really works. His, you know, I love that, like, you know, he's still a hometown hero. Both Glenn Powell and Linklater are both from Austin. Like, they're really putting the Austin movie scene on the map. And, you know, Austin's been on my list for a long time. You know, I've heard from family and friends like, oh, I go to Austin, you're gonna love this movie. One of my favorite podcasts. Shout out to Double Toasted. Both Corey and Martin are from Austin as well. So just like the goal next year is for me and Nick to be at the South by Southwest as press covering it for the podcast and our outlet. So like that would be awesome. But I love this movie. I really do. It's definitely my favorite movie of the year. The few things I had a problem with, I'll say, was there are some things that kind of just like thrown in kind of randomly. Like there's a thing about Gary's wife that kind of comes to visit him at like comes to visit him at the college campus one day, and it's a really brief scene and it didn't really add anything. It was a question about like how he's doing, like mental health wise, and while I appreciated that like that was there to like talk about mental health, whatever, and his like how he's doing, stuff like that. It just felt really kind of just like oddly placed, and we never hear or talk about her ever again. And I'm just like, well, huh? Like, wait a second, like, what? So I'm like, wait a second, if you're gonna bring her in and have this like really kind of quote unquote serious moment, is she gonna play a big part of her? Like, what? Because like they were married at one point, and like he mentions it briefly, Glenn Powell mentions it briefly, and I'm like, okay, you brought her into the scene, you're talking to her, like, but what was the real purpose of having her in the scene? Because it was 2, 3 or 4 minutes, and it was like never brought up again. And I was just like, what was the point of that? Like, we saw he had an ex-wife. It could have been like, oh, my ex-wife, XYZ, whatever. Yeah, I ex-wife, stuff like that. but it's never brought up again. We never see her again. It's a really kind of throwaway scene. I'm just like, there was no point of that whatsoever. It could have just been in passing. And like, if you're gonna bring someone's like ex-wife or like an ex-lover into a character's kind of just like morale and their story, kind of like their arc, whatever, make sure to have it like a really, you know, important part of their story and their arc, not just like, oh yeah, here's my ex-wife, that was it, and we never see her again. I'm like, well, that just kind of like a wasted time. That was kind of just like, that could have just been shortened a little bit, like, okay, this, whatever. And again, the pace, I love the pace of the pace of the movies goes really quick. Like, that's why I love like Everybody Wants and Dazed and Confused, School of Rock, whatever, because the pace of those movies go by like really quick. Like, okay, well, we're going. Once we're on this train, we're just going. So it didn't take away from like the movie or the pace itself, but it just didn't really make sense to see why he wanted to have him talk to his ex-wife at the college he worked at with no real progression to the story or really add anything to the story or add anything to Gary's arc or journey. So I was kind of like, it kind of makes no sense. Another thing too, I was kind of surprised with too, is that like, this is a real story. Obviously, this is a real guy. This is his, you know, again, this could have been more fabricated for the film itself, but like, after these people get arrested, that these people that are hiring him to like as a hitman, they go the whole thing, they go court, trial, whatever. And excuse me, the film, a little bit more of a spoiler maybe, but like, you know, I didn't understand really like why they had him in the court too, like this guy entrapped him, whatever, blah blah blah. Like, don't you want to like keep this guy identity like kind of like, you know, yes, they saw what we look like, obviously, but like the court and lawyer saying his full name, I'm like, yo, like, huh, like, why are you guys bringing him into the courts when he's kind of just like, he could, if the court or the jury goes not guilty, whatever, these people might come after him for revenge and be like, oh yeah, I wanted to hit, now I'm going after you, like, it's like, I was like, don't you want to keep this guy's identity like somewhat like quiet or confidential? But he was there front and center every time he busted someone. He'd be at the court hearing for the people he busted, and like some of them were like really angry and really mad. I'm like, well, that would have been cool, either explore that of like, did those people go after him after that happened, or they try getting revenge on him? But also, I'm just like, aren't you endangering this guy now for like exposing his true identity and his real name? It's like, what the hell? That makes no sense to me. I'm like, this is kind of like, you're probably hurting his chances of survival, or hurting his, like, you no protection about him. He's like, nope, he's just this guy, Gary Johnson, you know, blah blah blah, and it's just like, that kind of makes no sense. And there was times where the court jury was like, oh, guilty, not guilty, whatever. But I'm just like, I would want to protect this guy. He's doing this work for us. He's doing this job for us. Why are we not protecting him or giving people his real name? Like, or why is he even there at the courtroom in general? To me, I'm like, that made no sense. So I have a few nitpicks with that, kind of like that. But for the most part, it didn't take away why I love this movie so much. But the whole time, I'm kind of just like, wait, that doesn't really make sense, like, logically wise, or, you know, safety wise speaking, like, I don't know. But yeah, I love this movie. As of now, like I said, it is my favorite film of the year so far. Again, biased because, you know, Linklater is my favorite filmmaker of all time, but his movies have not been in my top 10 since Everybody Wants Some in 2016. That was my favorite movie of that year as well. So I'm so glad to see him kind of return to form, kind of the screwball, kind of character-driven piece, which I love about his movie. So yeah, I'm giving this really a solid 9. 9.5. It's not a perfect film, I will say, but I'm giving this a solid 9 out of 10. It beats The Fall Guy. I saw The Fall Guy with my parents the day before seeing this, and The Fall Guy was still my favorite movie of the year. And I saw Hitman the day after. I was like, yep, sorry, Fall Guy, second place. Hitman, as of now, my favorite film of the year. That could change. That could, you know, we'll see how things go the rest of the year, or I might watch it again, or watch Fall Guy again. You never know. I truly love this movie. Like I said, if you can see it in theaters, do yourself a favor, see it in theaters. If not, you're going to wait. I understand. It'll be on Netflix June 7th. 9 out of 10 for Hitman. Love this movie. Linklater, you're the boy. You're the man. Like, I love seeing you back in kind of your form and kind of just like the way, like the films I love seeing from you and stuff like that. So go check out Hitman. Again, theaters now, limited, I believe, on Netflix worldwide June 7th. All right, guys, transitioning to a new a different film. It is the prequel to the beloved film Mad Max Fury Road, which I know last week we talked about on the podcast with myself and Nick. Mad Max Fury Road is this movie now that like cinephiles and moviegoers just love. It's been praised as one of the best action movies of all time in the past 24 years, whatever. And it's a film that really kind of just like has definitely had like a lot of love after it came out. And when it came out, did pretty well for the most part. But I think what people kind of forget too, that it wasn't this really big box office or global smash that it was. It was more of just like did really well, but it wasn't like this $1 billion franchise. I think people kind of felt it was kind of more like a whole like Mandela effect of like, oh yeah, like this movie did really well. It did pretty well, but it wasn't this like really this enormous box office hit. It did very, very well, but it wasn't like 800, 900 mil. It was like 350, not breaking 400. Still did very well for the budget and what it was. But I remember it came out, I was like, oh my gosh. And you heard my thing last week. I remember I saw it with my dad at a screening. And we had it in the front row. It was 3D, whatever. But at the time, I was 17. I was like, what is this movie? This is crazy. And I remember loving it. I remember like everyone at my high school, go see Mad Max Fury Road. This movie's fucking awesome. It was the best action movie ever. But for some reason, almost 10 years later, I haven't been itching to rewatch it recently or at all. I'd rather watch, the John Wicks or, something like that. So I'm like, I haven't watched it in a long time. But when I rewatched it before seeing Furiosa, I still have so much love and appreciation for this movie because of the practicality of it all and the stunts and Charlize Theron, who I love, and Tom Hardy, who I love. I know they have a big feud of like they hated each other on set, but like they still work together well in the movie on screen, if you ask me. But that movie to me is like the practicality, the stunts, this like the balls to the wall insanity of it all is why I love that movie for sure. And again, very well made film. Put Mad Max back on the map after 30 years of being away from the Mel Gibson movie. So it's really cool how George Miller kind of has definitely stayed with this franchise through its kind of like inception, and now through kind of like different iterations of the franchise and the film, whatever. So when it came out, I remember 2015 when Mad Max Fury Road came out, I was like, okay, cool. Next one coming out, right? It ended pretty like, cool. What could happen next? And also like, it was did really well, won a bunch of Oscars, stuff like that, and it was silence. I said, don't you want to capitalize on this movie? Like, what's going on here? And it wasn't until like, it was rumors like, oh, there's gonna be a Furiosa prequel, there's gonna be a prequel of this, and I'm like, I kind of want to see a continuation of like Tom Hardy's story of like what happened to Mad Max after, spoiler, 10 years later, Mad Max Fury Road, like when Furiosa and the girls go back to the Citadel, and like kind of now like they have control of the water and the crops now. It's like, okay, their story's done, but like what about Max's story? And I was at a time when it came out, like even like a year after, I was like, when's the Mad Max sequel coming out? And there was no word about it. When all these Oscars and stuff, all this praise, whatever. And then rumor, there's gonna be a prequel, Furiosa, and I was like, oh cool, Charlize Theron coming back? Nope, it's gonna be another actress. And it was like in the works for a while. Then it was announced that Anya Taylor-Joy, Chris Hemsworth was involved, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II was also involved at one point. George Miller's coming back, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, what's going to happen with it? And then just like it was brought up a couple of times, and I think they got production like a couple of years ago. Finally, I was like, wow, almost 10 years later, like, oh, what's going on? And I said this in a podcast too. I think with Moses and Nick a few weeks ago. I said it's going to show, are people still interested in this movie, in Mad Max after 10 years after Fury Road? We'll see. And so I was like, okay, so again, I was looking forward to seeing, because everyone who was involved, George Miller's coming back, whatever. Again, I really did like Mad Max a lot. I think it was my top 5 of that, 2015, whatever. And I'm glad I rewatched Mad Max Fury Road. So again, this is Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. I was like, cool. If the trailers were great, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, is the origin story of the renegade warrior Furiosa before her encounter and team up with Mad Max himself. This movie's good. Is it Mad Max Fury Road good? No. It's still a very solid film, solid entry, that I would say, in the Mad Max saga for sure. However, it's just not Fury Road. And it's not kind of fair to compare the two for sure. And here's why. Fury Road, to me, what I loved about Fury Road was that, again, the practicality, the on-location stuff, on-location shooting, the on-location stunts, whatever. While this movie has that for sure, the use of CGI and VFX is apparent. You can tell out of this VFX and CGI, you're like, it's not as crisp or as natural as Fury Road did. Because at times you're like, oh my gosh, you hear Fury Road was like 98% like practical. And you're like, no way. And like you see the footage, you're like, holy shit, this is crazy. They weren't lying. This is crazy. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I was really just like, why I'm so like amazed by Fury Road because of that, and all the action was so like the stunts was so out of this world. But in this movie, you can definitely tell when the CGI is there and the VFX is there, it's apparent. It is not as crisp or like kind of like natural looking the way Fury Road does. With that said, I think Anya Taylor-Joy does an amazing job, and I truly mean an amazing job playing Furiosa, living up to the name, the legacy of the character. She does the name justice for sure. And I think in this movie, similar to Tom Hardy as Max in Mad Max Fury Road, she has little to no dialogue. I would say like maybe at least 50 lines of dialogue in this movie, where Tom Hardy, same thing. It was like the opening monologue and certain things, but he's mostly kind of like kind of grunting in Mad Max Fury Road. And with this, I wouldn't say she was grunting, but she's definitely like not as like, she doesn't speak as much. It's more, but with that said though, her performance in this, Anya Taylor-Joy's performance in this is mostly done by her eyes and her movement. It's all in her eyes, which I was if an actor can like do a lot of stuff, a lot of telling, a lot of kind of just like really kind of actor work, again, acting kind of just like performance based stuff via the eyes and movement. Props to you. It's impressive. It's really impressive. I do think that like with this, a lot of her performance is her eyes, the way she kind of like looks at people, the way she kind of like is in pain, or the way she kind of just like something happens to her or whatever, or the way she kind of just like is, it's like, you know, just like put in a position or whatever. It's all through her movement and her eyes. You're just like, wow, she's doing all of this, but not saying anything. And I was very impressed with that, because a lot of the film is more of her physicality of like on the bikes, on the cars, whatever, you know, blowing shit up, kind of betraying people, stuff like that. And I was like, okay, cool. Like all this stuff is more physical based and like eye based, and I was really, really impressed with that. Again, how Tom Hardy had little no dialogue in Fury Road, it's the same thing. It was like more that was kind of just like physical, and it's kind of just like craziness, kind of like a lot of movements and like stunt work and jumping off cars and falling off things, whatever. And this, very similar with her performance, it was just like a lot of just movement and all in the eyes. It was just like you feel her pain, you feel like this whatever, and you see it all through the eyes. And I was like, wow, I'm really just like amazed by that, because it's all just through that, her eyes and her movement. However, Chris Hemsworth in this really steals the movie. He steals the movie. He's playing this really wicked and twisted, like apocalyptic punk kind of guy with this really weird beard, whatever. And I really think Hemsworth does a great job as playing a villain. If you've seen Bad Times at the El Royale, you know he's a good villain. Or like you see him stuff like Cabin in the Woods, whatever, and you see him in now Furiosa. You can tell he's having so much fun. Listen, he's great as Thor. Absolutely, for sure. But when he's doing stuff like this, like more villainous and more kind of like evil roles, he's playing this like really evil and twisted and despicable guy. But he's also very charming and very kind of funny at the same time. You're like, the way he kind of balances kind of just like really two different characteristics of himself really works. How I praise films and shows about like kind of balancing two different genres or multiple genres or whatever. Chris Hemsworth in this as Dementis, really does a good job of kind of playing this like really fucked up dude, really kind of just like awful human being, like sick human being. But he's charming, the way he talks to people, the way he talks to Furiosa, the way he talks to kind of like a Morton Joe and other people. Like he's charming, he's kind of lovable. You're like, this guy, I hate this guy, I'm rooting against him, but like he's fun to watch. He's funny. He's fun. He's kind of goofy, and he's kind of charming the way he kind of talks and things. I was like, oh, okay, for sure. That it just works. So I really think that he was like he's definitely not a one note villain. And his him as a villain, I thought was more interesting than a Morton Joe was in Mad Max Fury Road. And a Morton Joe is also a villain, or also in this film as well, as a quote unquote younger version of that guy, whatever. And Morton Joe also was just a fucked, not redeemable person whatsoever. He's an awful human, awful person. So like that to me, like he's just this fucking scumbag. But with Dementis, like he's not a good person. We know that. Awful, twisted, despicable, sinister. But I thought like the range that Chris Hemsworth had, and just what he had more to offer, I feel like, as a villain in this than a Morton Joe did in Mad Max Fury Road, where he's like, oh, come get, I'm an evil emperor. She took my wives. We'll get him, whatever. And I was just like, okay, I've seen that before. But with in Furiosa, Chris Hemsworth as Dementis really put on this show, this kind of arc of the character. This really awful person, but the way when we meet Dementis, then no spoiler, like when we meet Dementis, where he was, and then how the movie, where his character goes throughout, a lot of ups and downs or whatever, but like I was really impressed with the range of Chris Hemsworth and how George Miller kind of like wrote him as a character. Like it wasn't one note, wasn't like the typical like mustache twirling villain or like the I want to rule all whatever. This dude had layers, but he was still a fucked up individual, but he had a charm to him, man. He really did. I was just really captured by Chris Hemsworth. I mean, great actor, really great villain. I thought even the movie that I thought was okay. People didn't like it as much was Spiderhead on Netflix with Miles Teller. And Chris Hemsworth kind of playing this kind of like twisted, kind of like island prison thing, whatever. It was still fun to see Hemsworth kind of let loose and play this kind of like also like evil and fucked up person. So yeah, I really loved Chris Hemsworth. I think he stole the show. I think the other issue I had besides the VFX and the overuse of the CGI in this was it's a long 2.5 hours, and it's a 5-chapter movie too. 5 chapters. The first 3 chapters, first hour and a half of the movie, it felt like really kind of just like dragged on a little bit. I thought the pace was very odd. I thought the pace in Mad Max Fury Road was just like boom, 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 balls to the wall, balls to the wall, balls to the wall. But like you learn things as you go on, and you just also catch up by the spectacle and the amazement of like the stunts and the action. Just like how are they doing? This is crazy. Where with this, there's still plenty of action and balls to the wall, like Mad Max stunts for sure. Even though a lot of it is CGI, unfortunately. Yeah, no offense to CGI VFX artists, they are true artists of their own, but like I think why people loved Mad Max Furiosa so much was because of the on-set practicality and the stunts. But the first hour and a half really kind of just like was slow and kind of just like not boring, but it's kind of just like, all right, where are we going with this? And you don't, again, I don't want to spoil nothing, but like you don't really see a certain character till like an hour and 40 minutes in. You're like, well, I thought it was an hour and a half in, where I was like, when is this person going to pop up? Like, where are they showing up? So I think there's a little too much time spent in the first 3 chapters, where 4 and 5, which I thought 4 or 5 chapters, I thought, well, this is great. This felt a bit rushed, where like they were trying to like, it's definitely more of a slower mythic fable of Furiosa and her backstory for sure. But I kind of want to know more about certain things of her backstory at the beginning of the film that kind of got a little glossed over. Like, no, we have to do this, we got to do this. So it's like, it was kind of like an uneven balance of like trying to set up these things in her life, her backstory, and this kind of also like where her heroic arc goes. And I was just like, oh man, it just felt really uneven and not like, it wasn't like executed properly, if you ask me. So that to me was a big thing. I'm just like, okay, like I'm interested, but not really capturing me in the way that you did with Mad Max Fury Road did. And I'm not trying to compare the two the entire time, but I do notice that like if a film can capture me in the first 20-25 minutes, okay, I'm still gonna watch, still gonna be curious, but like you gotta capture me in the first like really at least half hour. I'm like, okay, I'm on board, let's go. And you can probably win me over like the last hour or so too, but for me, I'm noticing that a lot recently, that the first half hour is crucial to saying who's going to be on board with this whatsoever. And I just think that it just was taking too much of its own time to kind of like show certain things and show kind of like, remember this thing, or remember this thing in the world that we're in, what happened in Mad Max, whatever. It's like, yeah, remember, but this is a prequel too. So like just establishing your character, establishing like what you want to show us, or show us something different that wasn't Mad Max Fury Road. And I think there's a lot of different stuff in this movie for sure, don't get me wrong, but just too much time was spent in certain things. I think Mad Max Fury Road is a crisp, lean 2 hours at the perfect runtime, where this 2.5 hours just felt like a little bloated at times, of just like they want to cram everything in, but also just set up all this stuff at first, where I'm like, you're setting up this fable for a story, but you're not really explaining it well. You're not really kind of just like using your time wisely, and it shows for sure in the first 3 chapters of the film. You're like, all right. So I had docket points for that. Cinematography in this, out of this world great. Junkie XL, Tom Holkenberg's, what's his name? I'm calling Junkie XL. He did the score of the first Mad Max. The score in this, out of this world great. It's electrifying. It's like dun-dun-dun-dun. It's like very kind of just like very cinematic, very upbeat, very kind of just like dun-dun-dun-dun, like very pulse kind of like, reminding me a lot of like Hans Zimmer and like Man of Steel or Dark Knight, whatever his kind of work. So the score in this is out of this world great. I'm really glad that George Miller brought back Junkie XL for the score of this as well, and just the score in this is out of this world. Again, the cinematography, really great when it's on location, real stunts happening and certain things going on. Hell to the yes, I love that. But when the CGI, the VFX is just like boom, you're like, losing its charm. You're losing its charm of like, man, what could have been. And there's also, again, no spoilers, obviously. It was only out for a week, but there's certain things I'm like, wait, something about certain characters' decision. I'm like, wait, they would find out about this pretty early. Like, they wouldn't let that slip right away. Are they that dumb? And they live in a sand wasteland post-apocalyptic world. So maybe they are that dumb and kind of just naive. But I'm like, like I think they would notice that this person is this person, or this person's kind of like is doing this, and just kind of like they're not really hiding it well. So I'm kind of head scratching where I was like, are they that stupid, or they're just making it stupid for the audience? And I'm just like, I don't know about this. So obviously it's no Mad Max Fury Road, but it's still a very fun time in the movies. But it worries me that this film did not do very well. But it kind of proved my point, like I said a few weeks ago with Moses and Nick, that if this movie does not do well, it's two things. One, that the box office, the movie theater experience is in trouble for sure, because if they're not, it's not showing up for this movie after the beloved and acclaimed Mad Max Fury Road. My main point I made with Moses and Nick a few weeks ago was that it's been 10 years. I think you could have. Why did it take you this long to make a prequel? Or it could have been a sequel, then a prequel. I think the smarter thing would have been a sequel first with Mad Max. You probably actually throw on as Furiosa again. Hey, I'm coming with you, whatever. Like, I still want to do my job, whatever. Or do this kind of explore what's out there. Excuse me. So, I think the almost a decade later wait for this movie for sure had a impact on this. I'm like, I think people were like, oh yeah, Mad Max, I love that movie came out. Do we want to see another one? Maybe we'll see. And it shows. This movie did not do well. This movie had a hefty price, hefty budget, hefty price tag. I want to say it was, $168 million plus marketing distribution. You're looking over $300 million for this movie after distribution and marketing, all that stuff. And the film did what? I think it did 31, 32 on the Memorial Day long weekend, but looks like it's only 26 on the 3-day weekend, which is really not good. So I still stick by my thoughts of that. I think there was just too much of a wait in between movies. Like, I think it shows too that, like, I think Top Gun Maverick got really lucky because of the fan base behind that original, and like at a time where like people were hyped for that movie. It was always hype around it, stuff like that. It was a spectacle of it all, seeing it in IMAX, all kind of stuff. But with this, I'm just like, you waited 10 years for another movie? It's going to hurt you. And I think the fan base, the core fan base, probably the hardcore, like diehard Mad Max Fury Road or diehard Mad Max fans definitely went out to see this weekend. I saw it because, again, I want to review it on the show, and I was really curious about the movie whatsoever. The marketing was really good, but I just don't think people still cared enough 10 years later. I think they're like, okay, yeah, I'll wait for it on streaming, whatever. And also I think we have definitely conditioned, and and streaming has definitely trained audiences and moviegoers to like, oh, give it 30 days, it'll be on HBO, it'll be on Max, it'll be on Hulu, it'll be on Prime, it'll be on Netflix or whatever, or it'll be on Peacock or VOD. And it's like you're hurting your own movie, man. You're hurting your own business and industry. And I think also too, people were saying this the other day that the prices of tickets have gone up a lot more. Obviously, I get it. It's COVID for sure had a big part in that. I think COVID had a big part in the movie theater experience altogether. But I think last year was definitely a sign of like, hey, listen, except for Barbie and Oppenheimer, except for Barbenheimer, Mission Impossible did not do well, Indiana Jones did not do well, The Flash did not do well, Fast did not do well, and it shows like, we're in trouble here, because if a movie like Mad Max that had all this love when it came out, all this more love after it came out, and no one's seeing this movie, a prequel about it, that's not a good sign. And it's like, I do think the prices of tickets have gone up a lot. If you live in LA or live in California, you live in New York City or any major city, the price for a ticket is like $20. So you're bringing like your wife or husband or a partner or whatever, boyfriend, girlfriend, or friends. It's expensive unless you have like the AMC A-list, or I have the Regal Limited, $20 a month for unlimited movies, or AMC A-list $25 a month for 3 movies a week. The price of tickets are really expensive, plus concessions and plus popcorn and plus, snacks. So it's just like, it's not the like typical, see a movie, whatever. But I guess more people are going maybe the early matinee or discount Tuesdays, where those offer it. But I will agree with people saying that the price of tickets have gone up a lot. And, $168 million for this movie seems like a lot for a film that about a prequel movie that came out 10 years ago. And how much was Mad Max Fury Road? The budget on that was 150 mil. So 150 mil, 158 mil for Furiosa. So, but worldwide it made 380 for Mad Max Fury Road and won a bunch of Oscars. Also, was still a gamble. That movie could have been like another Mad Max. Like, what? So, yeah, it's a lot of factors to it. But if this is a sign that what we're in for the summer, we're kind of in trouble for the movie theaters going. I think if Bad Boys for Life does not do well, so Bad Boys Ride or Die, keep messing that up. It should have been called For Life because it's 4. If Bad Boys Ride or Die does not do well, if Inside Out 2 does not do well, if Quiet Place does not do as well, I guess the only big movie we have this summer is Deadpool and Wolverine. I know that's doing pretty well with the box office pre-sales and the advanced tickets, whatever, and all the hype of seeing Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine and another Deadpool film. It's been 8 years. It's been 6 years since the last Deadpool movie. That's gonna be like our Barbie and Oppenheimer this summer because anything else might be. I hope not, but might not be like saving the box office or saving the theater experience. So, guys, if you are a Mad Max fan, if you are a movie going fan, I would definitely recommend seeing this in theaters. Again, I'm not raving by the way I did with Hitman, but still a very cool. It's definitely cool seeing in theaters. The sound, the spectacle, the action, all that kind of stuff. Definitely worth seeing. Despite my criticism of the movie itself, I didn't love it the way I did Mad Max Fury Road, but you might go see it in the theaters. Go on a matinee. Go on go to like a Discount Tuesday. See it with other movie fans, but. Because it's important for us to support the theater going experience no matter what, because we don't want to lose the experience of going to the cinema in theaters. We don't want to lose like that theatrical experience, because if we do, it's going to be a lot of Netflix stuff. We're going to be like, well, this kind of sucks. It's going to be kind of like very kind of copy and paste, like, very generic stuff. So, yeah, it's a lot of factors in this for sure. I'm worried about the box office. I'm worried about the summer box office. I'm worried about the theater going experience, because to me, that's my kind of like second home. Or like I've always felt at home at the movies. I always felt like as a kid I was like, oh my god, going to the movies. And what should I wear? How should my hair go? As a kid, it's been so important to me. It's been such a escape for me. It's such like a place of like almost like just like again, I call it my second home, because when I feel there, like I get excited, like. I get goosebumps. I smell the popcorn. I go all this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, this is great. Just the experience is like. This is awesome. So I don't know. I really hope that this summer we'll have some hits here and there. I know Planet of the Apes did somewhat well, but Fall Guy not doing well still breaks my heart. It's not doing well worries me. So it's gonna be a very interesting summer to see what's going on. But I would still recommend seeing this in theaters too. Go see Hitman if you can. But also see Furiosa. It's a wider release, so you probably have more options. You'll see it in like digital, Dolby Atmos or Dolby whatever cinema experience, and then IMAX, RPX, 4DX, whatever. Go to the movies. It's hot out. Go in a nice AC. Watch a really cool action blockbuster. It's fun to see. It's unfortunate that this did not do well, but I can't say I'm not surprised, because I had my suspicion of like, it's been 10 years since the last one. You guys waited way too long. So, it is what it is. I'll give Furiosa a solid 7 out of 10. I think I gave Mad Max a 10 out of 10 when it came out. I love that movie, but I think I would give Mad Max like a 9.5 now after rewatching it. But I'll give Furiosa Mad Max Saga a 7 out of 10. Still worth seeing in theaters for sure. Had a good time enjoying it, despite like the long run time, despite the use of VFX and kind of not go to CGI and just kind of like certain things like that, character decisions I don't really care for, or story beats. But I still recommend seeing this film in theaters if you can. But yeah, guys, let's see what happens in summer with movies. But if you've seen Hitman, looking forward to Hitman. You've seen Furiosa, looking forward to Furiosa. Let us know in the comments, on YouTube or in the reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We want to hear from you guys. So please review, rate the show. We want to hear from you guys. Your feedback truly means so much to us, both good, bad, or even neutral. We want to hear from you guys. So what are you looking forward to this summer? Have you seen Furiosa? Have you seen Hitman? Let us know in the comments, in the review, rating section, everything. But yeah, guys, we hope to see you next week for a full episode of the podcast. And as always, guys, we'll see you at the movies.